Divorce is an action. It is not meant to be a negative cloud that follows you for the rest of your life, your children's lives, and even your ex-spouse's life.
Today's guest is Sarah Armstrong. She has spent decades building an incredible career working at Coke, McKinsey, and now at Google. She's the VP of Global Marketing Operations, and she's also a mother.
When you're a single working parent, you can still achieve all that you want to achieve in life. Divorce can be this label that people carry and a bit of a scarlet letter in terms of what it means both personally and professionally.
We're talking about how she managed the Juggling Act. She even wrote a book about it called The Art of the Juggling Act, about how you can actually still have an amazing career and be a mother and not lose your shit.
We grow up going to school for a lot of things, but we don't get formally trained in how to be a parent, and we don't get any real education on how to manage our careers.
I say this from an honest perspective. A single woman who doesn't have children or a single man can work harder, faster, longer than I ever could.
And I think that there are times when you might have to pace yourself a bit on your career, and there's times when you can accelerate. You're the CEO of your own life. If that opportunity was there will be other opportunities in the future.
I'm Rebecca Minkoff, and this is Superwomen. Each week, inspiring women are interviewed to uncover the unexpected journeys, the challenges, and the unwavering spirit that makes them powerful. Get ready to be motivated by stories of resilience and discover the keys to unlocking your own potential. So welcome, Sarah, to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Rebecca. Great to be here.
Tell me a little bit about where you were in your career journey when you decided to become a mother and the shock that quickly ensued.
It's a great point. So I was early 30s. I was 31 when I had my daughter, Grace, and we had actually wanted to have a child for quite some time, but actually it took a while. And so the shock of motherhood definitely came, but the desire to be a mom was definitely there. So I was, early 30s when I was trying to figure out what this juggling act looks like. And I have to say that there were so many moments where I thought, wow, it's harder than it looks. And some people make it look easy, but I had always been trying to study those women around me that I thought were trying to do it to see what I could pick up along the way. I was raised by an amazing mom. She worked when I was younger, but she stopped working when I was 7. So she was a stay-at-home mom for my primary childhood years. So I was really looking to see around me who were those people that I could model and pick. But there weren't a ton in my early career, in fairness. So I had to also try to figure out what that looked like for myself.
So what did it look like for yourself?
Well, it's interesting because I was in a dual income household. So there were 2 of us both working, and I was traveling globally, which, Rebecca, for a lot of people, I'll tell you, I had a moment when Grace was in preschool, and I had a mom walk up to me and she looked at me and she said, "So you're Grace's mom?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "But you travel globally?" And I said, "Yeah, I travel, at least a week a month, somewhere in the world." And she's like, "Well, who's with Grace?" I'm like, "Well, her dad." And we were fortunate. I know. I said, "We're fortunate to have a nanny." I said, "I have an amazing nanny." And honestly, it's one of those moments. She was in her tennis outfit. I was back in the day, I was in my pantsuit. And she just gave me this look up and down and just walked away. And I thought, oh, okay. So I share that story because when I look at how I was doing it, I was kind of setting my own path for what worked for my family and for my career, but it had very much a global lens. And it wasn't the traditional, go home like a 9-to-5 situation.
We are in a culture where it is celebrating speed, it's celebrating ambition.
Yes.
But when you're a mother and you have a high profile career like you do, how do you sort of deal with that pressure and stress and your own personal, I have tremendous ambition that comes from me, not my job, right?
Right.
How have you been over the years able to go high when you need to, go, take it into lower gear when you do?
No, it's a great question. So one of the interesting things for my career path is, as I mentioned, I had Grace when I was in my early 30s. I did actually get a divorce when she was 7. And so when I look at the path of my career, I was in my 20s, I was out of balance and all I did was work, right? When I had Grace, it reset things of what life looked like, but my ambition, and I wanted to be best in the world at what I did. And so with that and being in these global roles, I had to figure out what that looked like. And when I got divorced, I had to stop for a minute and say, how am I going to be a single working mom and do that and still travel globally, still do all the things. I wasn't looking to pivot. And so it is a matter of figuring out what works for you and your family and your situation I always say your balance and the way that you want to manage things is not how everyone else is potentially going to do it. And I call it a transference of hours, because a lot of times the things that you think you need to do to get everything done in a day isn't going to happen in a normal working day. And I literally, I was a late night owl that would cram in what I needed to do because I knew that I needed to be able to both deliver at work, but also be there for Grace and try to be as present as possible for the few hours a day that I got with her, which is maybe 2 to 3 hours a day for the days that I was in town. And so that was really important too. And so it was a combination of things. It's making tough choices. Oh, and also, I think you get so clear when you become a working mom of what's important, and your patience for people wasting your time is, is short, because you really know you're trying to get everything done in a given day.
Oh my gosh. I just sent an email back to somebody who reached out and was like, I want you involved and help me and be on my board for free and give me advice when I need it. And I was like, thank you so much. I'm so honored, but no, no. You might never speak to me again, but the answer is still no.
No, you know what? And actually, I think the power of saying no is something I talk about in my book. A lot of times, first of all, we feel like we need to give a reason when we say no. And sometimes the answer is just, it's no. You don't need to give the reason behind all the. And so I think it's an interesting thing that sometimes we have a hard time saying no. And we absolutely need to if we're going to be able to do all that we need to do.
And also, I feel like we say, sorry, I can't, when it should just be, I'm unable to do this, not apologizing for it. And I'm guilty of it all the time.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because I had a colleague a number of years ago, and I wish I'd been given this advice much earlier in my career, quite honestly. And I was explaining to him why I couldn't come to this meeting with him. He stopped me and goes, Sarah, all I have to say is I can't make it. The minute you tell me the reason why you're not able to make it, I'm judging you on whether you made the right call. And he goes, and it's not my judgment to make.
Interesting. I love that a man said that to you.
Yes. And I said to him, like, Jonathan, thank you for sharing that with me. And it has literally stuck with me. And I think that was probably about 8 years ago. And I go, gosh, I wish. Yeah, by the way, both on the professional side and the personal side, and to your point, on the volunteering side, I mean, every angle of your life, you can use that little nugget. And it has been very freeing to not feel like I have to give an excuse, whether it's for the invitation I don't want to do in my personal life or the meeting I can't take for whatever reason. The answer is just no, thank you, I can't make it. And I actually tell my assistant that, by the way. I say to her, you don't need to tell them why I can't make it. You just say, I can't make it.
I love that. Ooh, I'm feeling that one.
It's a good one. It's one that's really, it's helped. It's been very liberating.
So you mentioned you got divorced when she was 7. Was that at all a moment for you where you realized something has to change in how you worked or lived? Or what was the shift? Because I know I have a lot of listeners that are single parents.
Yeah.
And the times where I'm a single parent, when my husband, when he travels, he goes away for like 2 weeks. And my respect for single parents who do it all the time is through the roof, because I lose my mind.
Yes.
As much as I love it, I'm like, I'm losing my mind. So I'm curious, what had to shift in your personal and professional life when you became that?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Yeah, there was definitely a moment where, first of all, I never envisioned I always say you never get married to get divorced, and you don't say, so when I get divorced, this is how it's going to work. It's not something you're planning for. So, but when that moment happened and I realized that being a single working mom was going to be my reality, the good news is my ex-spouse was a very active co-parent. So across 2 households, we were doing it. But having said that, I did have to really reset. What did the day-to-day look like? And what did I need to maybe say no more to than I had? And I'll tell you an example. I did a lot of business dinners, but instead of going out to dinner, I would have my colleagues from around the world come to my house. And I would make them dinner, and at least I could be home with Grace, like maybe have little dinner with her. And then they'd show up at 8:00. She'd be heading up to bed, and I'd have what I need to do from a business standpoint, but in my home instead of always being away. So that's just an example. But there are a lot of those tweaks that I needed to make. But also realizing that when you're a single working parent, you can still achieve all that you want to achieve in life. And I really feel strongly about that, because divorce can be this label that people carry and a bit of a scarlet letter in terms of what it means, both personally and professionally. And I just don't ever want that to be the case, because I think you can achieve all of your dreams, the vision you have for your life, and be divorced. Divorce is an action. It is not meant to be a negative cloud that follows you for the rest of your life, your children's lives, and even your ex-spouse's life.
Do you think that it, like, and I say this from an honest perspective, like motherhood did slow me down career-wise, right? A single woman who doesn't have children or a single man, right, can work harder, faster, longer than I ever could. So do you feel like there is just this inherent things are going to slow down or opportunities you just can't do?
Yes, and I'd say yes. So I'll give you an example. During my divorce, actually, I was offered a promotion and I turned it down because I said, I can't handle this right now. Like I'm like, I am trying to figure out how to live a new model for my life with grace and what this looks like. And I just can't take on something new, which I know anytime you do something new, you have to put that extra 110% into it. And I was already giving 110% trying to do the single working mom thing. So I passed it up and people were like, are you sure? And I said, I'm positive. I mean, I just can't do that. So to your point about slowing down, now, did it slow down the long-term trajectory of my career? No. And I think that there are times when you might have to pace yourself a bit on your career, and there's times when you can accelerate. And so I think is an interesting balancing act of when you make those decisions, and you just have to know what's right for you at the moment. Everyone else around you may be saying one thing, and you just have to know for you. Like I always say, you're the CEO of your own life and of your career, right? And so what is going to be best for you? And you make that call and you stick to it and don't look back, because if that opportunity was there will be other opportunities in the future.
Hey everyone, sorry for the quick pause. I want to share something really exciting. Superwomen has a brand new YouTube channel. It's still under construction, but big things are coming in 2026. You'll find past episodes, new episodes, and some bonus content I cannot wait for you to see. Just search Superwoman Media on YouTube and hit subscribe so you don't miss a thing. Okay, back to the pod. I think it's great that you offer hope and like, it doesn't long-term change anything, which I think people go, this is going to be the fork in the road that I took, I pulled back, I focused on my children or whatever it is. And now I'm fucked, right? For the future. But what makes you say that it doesn't for the long term affect that?
Because I think if you're still committed, that you have a view of what you want your career to look like, and you're willing to put in, I mean, by the way, having a career and raising a family, as you know, it's some of the hardest work you can do. And so I think being committed that you want to do both well, if you know that, and you know that you're going to stay committed to both of them, you want to be the best parent you could be, you want to be the best in whatever you've chosen to do in your career. Staying committed to that, is it a guarantee? No. But I fundamentally believe that if you stay on course for what you think is going to be the best way for you to manage your career and your life, it will work out in the long run. I will say though, Rebecca, one of the things that I've been reflecting on a lot of, which drove kind of one of the reasons behind the Art of the Juggling Act, is that we grow up going to school for a lot of things, but we don't get formally trained in how to be a parent, right? It's through our lived experiences, and we don't get any real education on how to manage our careers. And then we're asked to do these two things at the same time, two of the most important things you're going to do. You don't have kind of guidance on how you're supposed to do those well. And I see so many parents that are surviving and not thriving. And I think one of the challenges there is, how can people feel like they can thrive in both?
So in seeing that, especially for those who are probably first or second time parents and they're going through the whiplash of it all, what have you learned in your season time managing these huge careers and being a mother that you could parlay?
One of the things is really being clear on the boundaries that you need in your life to actually make things work. And I was not good at my boundaries, again, in the early stages of my career, I would say. And I needed to figure out, what did those boundaries need to look like? But I think the key things with boundaries is you can set them for yourself. But if you don't share them with the others around you, both personally and professionally, they will walk right over them or walk on them in a heartbeat. And so you need others to help you understand you're trying to set some boundaries to allow what you need to do on both sides of your life. So that's one thing that I was really trying to figure out how to build that. It's almost a muscle, right? To like set the boundary and kind of protect it, kind of what we're talking about in terms of saying no. All of these things are not maybe our natural inclinations, because we are wanting to say yes to everything and do that next thing. So I think that's the first thing.
How do you do that in a competitive environment? I think I can't speak from it because I was always, let's just say, in my role as Rebecca Minkoff. So I would set a boundary that like no one could say, oh, you can't do that. But I would watch, right? I'll never forget, we had a CMO and she was like corrected on this, but she was like knocking on the door while her report was pumping. And I was like, you can't do that. She's pumping. You're not allowed to, right? but the employee was too scared to tell her boss, hey, I have to do this. And I think there's so much fear that women experience or that I've heard. And it's like, I want to escalate. I want to show up in the same room as the man, but I have these boundaries and I'm struggling because I don't want to be judged or not taken seriously.
I appreciate that depending on the level you're in an organization and what that looks like. Because I really share this, I watch them trying to do it. And sometimes they're almost timid to do it. I'm like, you try, because you'll also judge. You'll also figure out in the environment you're in, how are people going to react to that? I find, 9 times out of 10, people see what you're trying to do and they want to help you support that boundary that you're trying to protect. Others, there's other individuals or circumstances or companies where it may not be as feasible. And then you have to decide, is this the type of environment that's going to work for me, in terms of your career and finding that. And so I think that that's one of the things, and I can say over the course of the various places I've worked, there's been different mindsets around what those boundaries look like. And I think that you have to figure out kind of matching for what you want to do with your career with the right environment and the individuals that can help you, and decide where you're going to flex on that boundary because you would rather be in the environment versus protect the boundary, versus the boundary is important to you. And you're like, no, I'd rather go find somewhere that's going to respect that. So it really is about you figuring it out. And sometimes it's hard because you're going to maybe have to make a tough call of whether that's the right environment for you.
And let me clarify, when we say boundaries, the boundary isn't for anyone listening. You can disagree with me. Yeah. I'm 23 and I have a yoga class and that's my boundary. So I can't.
In fairness, I do think everyone should work out every day, but there's early morning. I get up super early to do my Pilates or my walks, or you can do it later in the evening. But yeah, no, the boundaries during the workday, not for yoga, for sure. And actually the irony is, like, when I'm talking about boundaries, I'm saying in the 6 to 8 o'clock at night when you want to be home to feed your kids boundary, that like maybe I'm talking maybe 2 hours in a day that I literally put on my calendar. It was called Grace Time. And I said to my assistant, because I was in this 24/7 global role, people would happily take a call with me or want to call with me at 6 or 7 at night. And I said, I can talk to them at 8 or 9 p.m. or I can talk to them at 8 a.m. after I drop off for carpool. But 6 to 8 p.m. are just the 2 hours I can't talk in a 24-hour period besides me sleeping. So let's find a different hour, and so that was the way that I tried to manage it. And again, easier said than done, depending on the level you're in. But I do think if you don't try, then I think you always feel like things are happening to you. And as individuals, and I say this even to my, team right now, like, you literally, this is your career. It's for you to manage. And you can feel like things are happening to you, but it's for you to figure out how you want to manage your career and your day-to-day to do all that you want to do.
So earlier in our conversation, you mentioned you would put Grace to bed because you have a global role, you'd go back online. And now, I have a very different view of what burnout is. I firmly believe if you love what you do, working those extra hours isn't necessarily going to be the cause of burnout. But for those who do feel like, oh my God, this career for me is a stage for me to get to the next level, and I have to work these hours, and I have a kid, and I have a husband, or whatever it is, and then you just feel like stretched thin.
Yeah.
How did you not feel that way? Or did you, and you just said, this is a small season for me?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I would say I did feel stretched thin, for sure, and in periods of time. I also agree with you. When you enjoy what you do, it doesn't really feel like work. And so if I needed to get back on a call with one of my colleagues in a different part of the world, that actually gave me energy. And I'm also happen to be a night owl. It's awake anyway, and might as well be productive and connecting with people. So I do think, though, the feeling stretched thin, and because we are in an environment now where our technology is with us at all times, and technically you could work anytime from anywhere, I think that's one of the biggest challenges we have, is how do we create space when we say, okay, I don't need to work right now, and you literally put it away. And that's one of the things I have had to work on over the years. And one of the things I did during those 2 hours I had Grace is I had done a renovation in my house, and I designed a cupboard in my back hallway as I walked in the door that I literally put my tote and my laptop, like everything went in the cupboard. And it was tucked away. And I put it away for those 2 hours. Like it was like, It was because I always say when you put your laptop on the kitchen table or the counter, even if it's closed, it's talking to you.
Yeah.
It is, it's silently talking to you. And I just think one of the biggest challenges for us as working parents and working moms is being present for those moments that we have with their children in a given day. And so my goal was that Grace really didn't associate that laptop. I had a personal laptop, in fairness, on the counter for looking up recipes and those, but it didn't have my work email accessible. So I was like, it was like church and state. But I think that the ability to put that technology away for a little while is one of our biggest challenges as a society, as we know. But I think as parents, doing that or figuring out how to build that muscle a bit is one of the best gifts we can give ourselves and our kids for those few hours we're trying to spend with them.
I don't believe in work-life balance. I call it work-life integration. Do you think it's achievable or not? And if it's not, how do we get unbrainwashed with our society that tells us it's all possible? You can look beautiful and have your boobs up here and be in shape and be a mom and cook all the dinners and go to work and be happy and have a lot of sex, all the things.
I do think it's possible, but you might not have everything all at once and at the same time. So everything that you just articulated, all of those things might not happen in exactly the same time. And I think I look back, as a working mom, I didn't work out every day. I wanted to, but it just but I tried to get in 3 to 4 days a week. Now, as an empty nester, if I miss my workout, something's really wrong because I have the luxury of an empty nest. And so I think that's one of the things. And I do think it's possible to integrate both, but it takes a lot of these muscles that I'm talking about, whether it's the setting the boundaries. The other one I talk about is a compartmentalization muscle. But I said one of the most important things is having a compartmentalization muscle that allows you to potentially turn things off for a little bit to give your brain that rest. Now, as an owner and a founder as you are, this is probably one of the bigger challenges because of all that you're trying to drive. But I do think in general, most people should be able to build that muscle to be able to give them those breaks and also to be present. And so that's one of the muscles that I think allows for work-life integration, because the only healthy way to do it is, I think, to also get some breaks.
When you got your breaks, what were those? Like for me, it's going for a bike ride or napping in the sun or maybe getting 3 sentences of a book read.
Well, that's the luxury of reading. No, mine was going for a long walk. I would try to get a weekly massage. That was my gift to myself. And that was my hour Saturdays from 4 to 5 p.m. And I said, that is my 1 hour. If nothing else, can I protect that 1 hour? And that was because I really needed it. I needed it for my neck and back issues. I needed it to be able to function and stay out of pain, but also it did release a lot of stress, and it was the gift to myself each week. So I think it's whatever that thing is that you need to feel like, and I say this with a love for what we do, not just working and being a parent, like what's the thing for you? What's that gift you give yourself every week? And if it is an hour, if it's going to see a friend for coffee, whatever gives you energy, whatever is going to make you feel like, okay, I can do this. That's the thing I want everyone, especially when you're in the thick of it, when you have the little ones at home and you're just feeling like you're juggling all those balls. What's the thing you give to yourself?
Right. And we have to get out of this victim mentality or like self-sacrifice.
You've generally chosen to have children. We all need to work, but you've chosen a career of some type. And it's like those two things, feeling like the martyrdom or the like that negative energy doesn't help anyone.
And I feel like it propels that activity from just staying out as an energy.
Absolutely. And that's why I generally, and I wonder how you feel about this, like I was always looking for individuals in my life that would kind of support what I was trying to do versus have me feel badly. If there was ever a friend or, a moment where someone was questioning what I was trying to juggle, I'm like, I don't need those questions. I'm clear on what I'm trying to do. And so I looked for friends, quite honestly, that supported, whether it was other working moms who you can really relate to from one level, but I had a ton of amazing stay-at-home moms that were in my kind of support network and were there for me in so many different ways and were like cheering me on, like, amazing what you're doing, keep going. And I think you need both.
I don't get the questions, but I get the, you're such a superwoman. How do you do it all? And I'm like, you're out of my life now.
Exactly. My whole reflection is why can't we have it all again? But it might not all happen at once. And some people will look at me and say, well, you got divorced, so you don't have it all. Like I was with my ex-husband for 17 years and now I have an amazing relationship that is not a traditional model. It's long distance and it works perfectly for me. What does having it all really mean? Because you're having it all, my having it all might be very different formulas.
So different. So different. And even the way we choose to mother, like I have friends that choose to work way longer hours that I think if I worked that many hours, I would be sad that I wasn't missing my kids, but they're fulfilled. And like, I think everyone has to be like, to each his own, you do you.
Absolutely. I think there's so much judgment, I'd say, in society about a lot of the decisions we collectively make. And
Yeah.
I always just say, look, we're all trying to be happy, live the most fulfilling lives we can, raise great, happy, healthy kids. But how you do it, what that formula looks like is for you to define. It does take some conscious effort to figure out what works for you and to try things. And, some things I did, I was like, oh, that didn't work so well. And then, you shift and you evolve over the course of time.
So looking back, what would you say that you tried for you that didn't work?
So I'd say if I take my 20s before work, I was way out of balance. So rebalancing, and Grace was a part of my rebalancing of my life to some extent. I think at the divorce point, when I got divorced and I figured out what I could and could do as a divorced mom, I'd say there were things that I no longer put the pressure on myself to be a part of. And I'll give you an example. When she entered kindergarten, first grade, and at the school, they had all those volunteer lists back in the day when they were on the table, like sign-up sheets. And I walked in, and in my prior life, I would be like, oh, let me do 5 of these. And I walked and I stopped and I'm like, I'm just going to pick one. And I looked, I'm like, I'm picking Valentine's Day. That's a happy day. And so the reason I say that is there's a lot of pressure for us to be in the classroom doing everything. So early on, I would have tried to sign up for everything. And then I realized, no, pick one thing. So I picked one volunteer thing at school. I picked one board, not 5 boards. Pick the one thing that then you can commit to versus trying to do them all. So that was something I shifted in my life. And I think that made a difference. And I think down the road, it's interesting because we always had a nanny, as I mentioned to you. And there was a point where Grace actually was like, Mom, we don't need a nanny anymore. I'm old enough. And I thought to myself, no, I need a nanny. Mom needs a nanny. Because for 2 reasons. Mentally, I didn't want her coming home to an empty house. I had tried that a little bit to go back to that doesn't feel good. Yeah. And 2, there were things that now I needed. So I said, Grace, I need someone who helps me with these things because I really, in fairness, I don't want to ask you to have to do that every week because there's something every week. So it's like trying these different models of what's going to work for you and then figuring out, and then I just fine-tuned. I constantly fine-tuned.
I think as I've done that, because I, like you, was like, I'm going to be on the PTA and blah, blah. And then I was like, oh God, I can't. Friday at 9:30 a.m. every week? Like, no, not happening. And then as I've achieved more success, I'm like, you know what? I'm in a phase of my life where I can pay my way out of this. I'm gonna give extra to the cookie fund. I'm gonna give extra to the field trip. That's my way of giving back, even though I can't physically be there with all the moms. Like I have someone that does my returns for me now. That was a huge unlock. Even just 2 weeks ago, I was like, why am I doing this? Let my housekeeper, I'll pay her more money. She'll be happy. She'll go stand in line.
I have a young gal that works with me right now. She's my housekeeper, and she comes and she's so appreciative of the extra money on top of her day-to-day job. And she literally thanks me and I'm thanking her like, thank you. You're helping me so much. But it's a win-win. It's a win-win, but it is interesting. And then the other things you asked, like we always have these things coming at us every day, like all the stuff we're supposed to do in our personal lives. And I started doing what I call a Sunday list. So what I do is all those things that come in that you need to do, but you don't necessarily need to do right this moment, I put on my Sunday list. And then in Sundays, I block an hour or so and I just crank through it.
Wow.
It's so instead of having those things literally like you lay down at the end of the night, it's all that list of things that you're like, oh, I didn't do this. And that's all been written down and it's on a Sunday list. I don't even worry about it. And then I pick it back up and I'm like, what do I need to do today? Now some of them get pushed to the next Sunday. I'm like, not this week. But that's been one of my little tricks along the way that has helped with the mental load of what we carry, of all the things we're meant to be doing as a mom. And sometimes we feel like we have to do it in that moment. It's like, no, it can get put on a list that gets done at some point. It doesn't have to be done today or in this moment.
Right. I think for me, it's like the minute I write it down, I feel relief because I know it's written down and I'll get to it.
Yes.
It's not stuck here.
Well, right. I had lost some things, technology, and this IT guy said to me, he goes, when you write it down, it's your permission to forget. I said, you're right. And it can be off. It's that sticking up there. So yeah, I feel that's one of those little hacks for life hacks.
Well, in my next career, if I ever have one, I want to do an app that's called Wife. It's going to be for women who need a wife, right? And it's someone who has had kids and who knows all the things and knows how to do it. So like, oh, I know exactly how she'd want this done because I've lived it and breathed it.
That would be a business, Rebecca.
On my spare time, I'm going to put on my Sunday list.
I think that would be a business. I think you'd have a lot of takers.
Gosh, so many women need a wife. It has been so refreshing to talk to you today because I feel like it's very rare to meet someone who's achieved what you've achieved career-wise, but has had their Wonder Woman like boundaries up and women can do it and we're not going to be martyrs. And it's just refreshing to hear that you've been able to do both. So I'm so grateful to have you on. And where can everyone read both of your books?
Wow, thank you. So my books, I actually keep them on two separate sites because they're kind of two different audiences per se. So the first book, The Mom's Guide to a Good Divorce, is at gooddivorce.guide. And you can reach me there. I've got all my contact information. And then the second book, The Art of the Juggling Act, is at thejugglingAct.com. And you can reach me through that or on LinkedIn. You can always get a hold of me there. Thank you for having me. And I do think the goal of enjoying life while you're trying to be a parent and manage a career, it's what we're all trying to do. And I just hope the Art of the Juggling Act can help those parents, and specifically those moms out there that are trying to figure it out. It's written, by the way, when you said we don't have time to read books, it's written in very bite-sized pieces. It's like a topic per page. So you can pick it up and just read one topic. You don't have to read it cover to cover. It's just meant to be there kind of as your companion along this journey of being a working parent. So
I love it. We need all we can get because it's tough out there and it can be incredibly lonely. And to know that you're surrounded by like-minded people who are, trying to figure it out as best they can is awesome. So thank you for giving us these guides. I don't need the divorce one yet.
No. And the couple should stay happily married. But if you need to do it, especially when children are involved, there's a way to do it. And so that's the one thing. But no, hopefully the Juggling Act book can help.
Awesome. Thank you. So if you've enjoyed this episode, please rate and review. I hate saying that. It's real cringe, guys, but it does help with the algorithm. So thank you for tuning in today. And please go get the book, The Art of the Juggling Act. Thank you so much, Sarah, for joining me.
Thank you, Rebecca. Great to be here.
Thanks so much for watching today's episode. Before you head out, I want to invite you to my brand new YouTube channel for all things Superwomen. It's a fresh space I'm building out for 2026, packed with past episodes, future episodes, and some special new content we're cooking up. Just search Superwomen Media on YouTube and subscribe so you're there for everything coming next. I'll see you over there. Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you've enjoyed it, take a second to rate and review the show wherever you're tuning in. It really helps others find the podcast. You can follow me on Instagram at Rebecca Minkoff and at RM Superwomen, or for a slice into my personal life at Becky Minkoff. And don't forget to check out my book, Fearless, The New Rules for Unlocking Creativity, Courage, and Success. See you next week.